So when I was in college, I read a manga that was really a big turning point in me for my reading and what I enjoy. It was called Ichi the Killer. It was so violent and perverse, and I'd never seen something like it to that extent that I just loved that manga and I just couldn't get enough of it. And with that, it led me to reading stuff like Market Stay Sod and stuff like that. Prior to that, I was little baby boo boos who couldn't handle violent stuff or didn't really codify sexuality too much, I guess. But that manga was the turning point, and I never really thought I would find something like that again. And I always wanted to because I loved it so much, but he just pushed it to such an extent that I saw no one else did. But I'm glad to say I found a novel that trumps it in its depiction of graphic violence while still being an amazing story, just like Itchy the Killer, and that is Hog by Samuel Delaney. Um, it's probably the most disturbing book I've read, and I love it. And okay, let's do a little bit of plot stuff first. So, the point of view character of the book is a mixed race 11-year-old who who is a cocksucker who just has sex with a lot of older men and who enjoys sex as a little whore. Oh my god, don't cancel me. But and its novel starts off with him with his Mexican friend in their apartment building, and his Mexican friend is pimping out the character, and it's pimping out his sister as well. So all these biker dudes are just banging his sister and getting blowjobs from the character. And eventually, his father, who's the tenant, knows about it, comes in and bangs his daughter as well. I'm skipping a lot of graphic detail as well, just the nature of like online discussion. But mind you, it's a very graphic novel. And if you think that's pretty bad, Hog, the titular character, has probably one of the worst character intros ever. And I mean worse, not so much that it's poorly executed, but this dude is a bastard. You first see him raping a woman, and then he sees the main character. I don't know if he's ever stated, I forget the name of the main character, but the 11-year-old boy, and proceeds to have sex with him and abduct him and do all this um, perverse sex stuff with him as well. His job is a professional rapist. The woman says something like, "Oh, I think he tore something in me." It was like, ugh. But like, yeah, he's a professional rapist. People hire him to so that they can get back at certain people, women predominantly, and he can hurt them and they can teach him a lesson and everything, and that's how he gets paid. He's a gross, disgusting individual. He doesn't shower. He will have sex with anybody. He's into poop play, piss play, pretty much everything. And the first part of this novel is him assembling a little band of people and going around and hurting these women, hurting these people. Now, this might sound extravagant, like Ben, what the hell are you doing? This is an important book, I feel like, and it's funny because Norman Mailer also says that this is a very important book. He has a review on the back of the book or blurb just saying like, this is such an important book, and I agree. Um, somebody contrasting it to like Short Rumblin', somebody once said that Delaney is post-transgressivism, and Short Rumblin' absolutely. Well, all these transgressive qualities um, are more normalized to an extent, and the characters just accept it. They just take it like, yeah, we like violent stuff. I think the best thing, and I always remember it, when Scummy told Show in that book, like, hey, I'm a cocksucker. You don't ask me to suck your cock, you tell me to do it. So that kind of mindset, I think, is just a great example of post-transgressivism. This book teeters the line, I feel like. I feel like it's very transgressive, but it also has those post-transgressive ideologies in it as well. And also, another point to work off of, when you look at Market Day Sod, a lot of Sod sexuality is based off the fact that it is transgressive in its nature, and that's what turns them on. So, for example, Sod, sometimes I'm not even sure if he's homo or bisexual, or if if he actually wants to be with men, because he more frames homosexuality in the in contrast to the eyes of the church, where he likes homosexuality because it's sinful, and not so much. And there's not so much description of like him liking it because he appreciates the male body. But with Delaney, there is a huge appreciation to the male body. He's a gay man himself and everything, and that kind of goes along with a lot of the sexual acts here too. There's that transgressive element that it's fucked up, but at the same time, there is a appreciation and a actual eroticism to all the sexual acts within this book. It's not just being perverse for the sake of being perverse. There's an underlying appreciation for all of it. So when you have all these characters engaging in these acts, which is does multiple transgressive things like pedophilia, I forget what poop eating is called again, but all that stuff. There's a certain intimacy to these acts as well. It's not just like, oh, let's fuck up these people to fuck them up. Like, and you can see that in the contrast with how he treats the people, the victims that he's getting with, versus like the actual main character and his relationship with him. Delaney doesn't really focus hardcore on the rape acts. I mean, it's there and it's present. He talks about it, but he goes into much more detail with the sexualities of the people in between the group. Also, I'm saying the group. I can't say the names because like one of the characters' name is literally just like the N-word. So bear with me. And even when you see the end of the novel, after all this screwed up stuff happens in the book, between Hogg and the 11-year-old boy, they have a sex scene that just feels different. It's just a lot more intimate. It's just a lot more. Hogg has a larger appreciation for the boy, and it's like no, this is kind of like my piece. This is my boo and stuff like that. Maybe not boo, but like even if he's talking about like putting him in a doghouse and chaining him to a leash, you can see there's a certain relationship happening there that Hogg is feeling a lot of affection towards his kid. But conversely, the boy starts thinking about running away from Hogg and going to two other guys. Not so much because like, oh, Hogg is dangerous, I have to get away from this maniac who's a professional hitman rapist. More so it's like, I'm kind of attracted to these other guys a bit more. Maybe I can run away from Hogg. And Hogg's like, hey, is everything okay? Kind of notice that the kid's not responding to his future plans with him. And if you really just take away a lot of like, if you just strip it down to the core elements, what is it if not like two people, one person like, I'm not really feeling this person, or if an older person or old woman gets into a relationship with a younger person and the younger person's like, I want to go out and explore more. That's the element of post-transgressivism, where it's like, even though they're doing all these acts, it still boils down to an actual relationship and not some just like rape slave party like in Sard's work. To get back a little bit on the plot, they go through the rape escapade, and there's some moments where it's just like, it's really out there. Like one where he hurts a family and like the boy is sexually attracted to Hogg at the end of it, even though he sees them like screw up his family. And I'm not going to say the line Hogg says, but Jesus Christ. And stuff like that. And like Hogg just like, murders somebody cold blood and whatnot. But then he does a switch. And it's kind of like the switch in Short Rumbling, where one guy does an act against Shote that hurts him. And even though it's sexually violating and it's violent like a lot of the other acts in the novel, this one is it's treated with a level of gravity that brings it back to the real world. And it's seen as sexual abuse, and that happens in this novel. Spoilers, but a character, Denny, puts a nail through his dick to make a dick ring, and he's kind of getting an infection from it. He's kind of going crazy, and again, there's another one of those intimate moments where the main character is, blowing him and everything, and he doesn't make him come. And, like, Danny's like, please, don't stop. And, like, the character's like, I wish he came. Character gets sold off. But, right after that, he goes on a murderous rampage and kills 24 people. Just murdering them. Just, like, killing them with, like, fire picks and stuff. Like, shooting them in cold blood. Killing pregnant women. And you don't see it from Danny's perspective. None of the characters are directly involved with it. It's all through like radio stuff or news and stuff like that. So this one scene will show, because he got sold off to another person, he sees some couples on the boat, on the barge, and this is I think the smartest scene in the novel, because it just gets really quiet, it gets really intimate, and it's just these kind of weirdos who are just kind of on the fringe of society, but they're not bad people, just talking and enjoying their neighbors. That's what it is. So they're just enjoying their neighbors. Like one woman has a baby, she's pregnant, they're just talking like, hey, I want to learn. Her husband, who's white, wants to learn the harmonica. I was like, oh, you just want to be black. I don't want to be black. And it's just back and forth. And it's really sweet and wholesome. But then the two people on the barge have sex with Hog. So have sex with the main character. And they turn out to be perverts. And then a policeman comes in and he turns out to be pervert and goes on a show. But then there's a bang. And they all have to go away. They go to the ship. Well, some of them stay to have sex more. But they go to the ship and that husband-wife couple with the baby got murdered by Denny. And they're just blood strewn everywhere, just mincemeat out of them, and it's horrific. And then the news media comes and covers it. They interview some of the people there, they're advertising it. So it takes you out of it. So and puts you back, it's like, oh God, this is the real world. And Danny becomes a scary character because he's just like a 17-year-old boy who's just kind of a weirdo, who's a pervert. But like, it surprised me when he became a killer just because it just seemed out of nowhere. But then like when you think about it, like, oh, this guy's a weirdo just beating off with bikers all the whole time and just being a pervert in his office, and then he goes on this hitman rape thing and enjoys it. Of course he'll turn into a psycho and kill people. Like, it's not a far jump, but you really don't expect it. And doing that really places the book in the real world and reminds you of a lot of the violence that happens in our world, and how, like, a lot of these characters in the novel who are on the fringe, how much on the fringe are we not seeing? Now, not to say that every book has to abide by some huge realistic standard. It can still be seen as like the literary notion or the literary movement of eroticism that Delaney takes part in, obviously, and then just like putting it on the novel and putting it on the real world. We see that in books like Gravity's Rainbow. And not to justify Gravity's Rainbow for Delaney, but it's just more an example where there's a lot of really strange, perverse sex scenes in Gravity's Rainbow, like the orgy on the boat and everything, and with that 11-year-old dying. But then that's contrasted with the real world outcomes of World War II. So whether you want to say the stuff Pynchon or the stuff Delaney talks is more realistic than you think, or it's using the literary genre of eroticism and then playing it back on the real world to make us more conscious of what's happening in our world. And what I mean by that also, here in San Diego, sex trafficking is an $800 million business just in this damn city alone. We're right next to Tijuana, a lot of cartel stuff. I think it's calmed down in recent years, but it's still prevalent there. A lot of sex trafficking is with minors. And if you go online and look it up, it blew my mind. It's like, it's not people getting abducted. It's not people getting taken. It's people like, they're like, how do they find these minors to have sex with? Facebook, Craigslist, Tinder. It's a lot of surface level stuff. I know a family friend who has somebody who was born out of incest, the father's daughter incest. I knew another person who pointed out, like, was like, oh yeah, that person, I worked with her, and she has sex with her father and competes with her mother with it. And everybody let them know. These things are part of our world. And that's where I think this book is just so intelligent, because it shows the sexual aspect of it, and it shows how the perverse does incite a sexuality, and how that is there, and how people do engage in these acts. They can also engage in these acts in a consensual way, but it also shows the level of real world violence that can happen. So it shows both sides of the spectrum, but also not in necessarily a binary, but they intermingle, and a lot of these perverse things we just don't like to focus on. So again, to go back to the child trafficking example, where you'll have all these people like on the right and stuff like that, even some on the left too, but into that QAnon stuff, like, oh, the Hollywood sex trafficking rings, it's a perverse cult by Hillary Clinton, they're just abducting children. When in actuality, their daughter's just probably in the background texting their John on their phone right there. Had an ex who had a family member who went to jail for prostituting minors. Yeah, it's a weird city here, but but my point is that this stuff is really surface level, and it's kind of like 2666, where sometimes with the news media and sometimes with us, we focus on more of the sensational things. So, like, while a murderer is going around killing people and that captures a lot the world's attention and everything, it's ignoring a lot of the crimes that's happening with minors or the sexual crimes that's happening in families right now. Just like in 2666, with all these women just dying constantly, just being gang raped and murdered, what does the news media focus on? A guy pissing in a church. So that's what it brings attention to. That's what it makes us look at this and reflects back upon ourselves. And that's why I feel like this book has so much literary merit. It has a lot of merit in itself, just in like being so pushing the boundary so far with sexuality and the perverse, and just like also like kind of like the Sotos thing, where just like no hold rules, just go crazy. But then it does the smart thing of reflecting it back upon us as well, especially at the middle section of works, where I feel like with a lot of transgressive works, they kind of start to peter out. That happens all the time with Sod. And with this book, I felt like, okay, we're just gonna see a bunch of the hitman rape things throughout the novel, and that's pretty much gonna be the bulk of it. But to make that shift in the novel is so intelligent, and I really love it for that. It was just surprised me. And he makes a point where like main character's missing Hog, and he comes back. I'm like, because this is when all the murders are happening. Like, oh my god, Hog's back. I kind of feel that way, even though he's such a bastard. And then he just goes back into Hog stuff and like starts an orgy right there. So it's like, oh wait, why did I feel comfort seeing this guy back? But that kind of in abusive relationships also. You feel somebody comes back, you feel relief, but it's like, wait, this person hasn't changed. Why am I feeling this way? So I I can't really recommend this novel because it is so far beyond like anything I've read, and I love it for that. But if you're into perverse stuff, if you're into stuff like Sotos and stuff like that, or George Bastei or Market de Sade and whatnot, I 100% recommend this novel. I think it's one of the best pieces of erotica that you can read. I still like Short Rumbling more, to be honest. I feel like that was a lot more wholesome. I know. And this one is just super like dark, dingy, back alley, perverse. But I think it's a very intelligent novel. The only real criticism I have for it, there's a scene where a car flips over with another major character in the novel, and then like the main character is listening to the radio put through that car that's being flipped over. That felt a little plotty, like just kind of like mashed together, and like some of the sex scenes with Hog, I'm like, how is he doing this while he's driving? But other than that, it's a great novel, and it still has all the flares of somebody who has a long career writing fiction. So Hog by Samuel Delany, if you're into this stuff, I definitely recommend. Funny thing too, Delaney told me I can skip all the sections in the novel. If I did that, I would have read like 20 pages of the damn thing.